So Jonathan just got home last night from Beaumont and Houston area. He went up there to help rescue some people with his bow fishing boat that has some awesome lights on it. And he told me some incredible stories that I want him to tell all of you. He doesn't want to do this video, but I'm making him do it for posterity's sake and because I think that there needs to be some awareness brought for the situation going on down there with the volunteers coming and such. So I'm going to turn over to Jonathan. He's going to tell you the story in chronological order, how it happened and what he experienced and saw, and some pretty amazing stuff. So here we go.
Well, I got a call first off from my buddy Eric Bell. He was wanting to help out, like most people in this hurricane, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "No, I'm not doing anything." He goes, "How about we go down there and help?" And I agreed, and we made plans, took off work, and headed down. Luckily, our clients and then my schools were able to say, "Yeah, you go down and take care of business." So we headed down there with a boat, a bow fishing boat. It's an 18-foot John boat. Can handle me and my buddy and about 7 or 8 others pretty comfortably. It's a good sized boat. And they told us first head to Katy, Texas. They had a huge need. And I don't know how many we passed. We probably passed on our way down there a couple hundred boats. And we saw easily over 1,000 other volunteers just bringing their boats down to help. So the love there was amazing. We saw a ton of firemen and police, and throughout the whole ordeal, they were amazing. They were definitely there to help, and I loved their support. So we first went to the fire department there in Katy, where they told us they needed a lot of help, and we waited in line a couple hours. And just like every place that we go from there until we got to Beaumont, they kept telling us, the government keeps telling them there's too many volunteers, too many boats in the water, and although the volunteers there themselves, the police department, the fire department said there's enough room for y'all. They just don't want to mess with you guys. So it was kind of upsetting that you have people in their homes that we could rescue at first, and they weren't allowing us to go. Finally, we go to Crosby. They told us the same thing. We sat there a couple hours. We went to a couple other places and sat, and then we went to Beaumont, and I ran into a good buddy of mine, John Wyatt. And he said, "Hey, I can get us in the water. I'll figure out a way." And he did. We got there, and the police said, "You can't get in the water." And he said, "Hey, we're here to rescue, and we're getting in the water." And about that time, a call came in with a family of 7 who needed rescued. And the police basically just allowed us to get into the water because no one else could get to them. So we got out there, got our boat in the water, started rescuing people. It was really rewarding, taking water around, taking supplies, taking food. There was a few frustrating things, and that's the thing we kind of wanted to bring light to. And I know John Wyatt's been working on that, but we went to a church that had stockpiles of water, and we offered to take the water in our boats to places that didn't have any. Most of Beaumont and some of these other places didn't have water for the last 4 days, and so any of the water that we brought, people just sucked it up quick. I mean, they hadn't had water in 4 or 5 days, so that would be a thing that wish that somebody could address. Is we had thousands upon thousands of volunteers just sitting there. One guy I talked to had been there 3 days and didn't have his boat in the water. I know that they talked about some of the people dying, and I wonder if we were able to get all our boats out there, if that could have been avoided. And I get that with thousands of people in the water, it might be potential wrecks or whatnot, but most of them are all southern, either from Oklahoma, Texas, who know how to ride boats or drive boats. And I'm willing to put my life on the line, and some of these other guys were too. So I'd hope in the future somehow somebody find out a way to manage all us volunteers so that people aren't just sitting by doing nothing. I know that there's a big group going out tomorrow, tons of water. There's a big group coming out of Utah bringing in tons of water. And I know John White and I have been organizing another, mainly John. I've just been making a few phone calls here and there and getting other people to volunteer, but bringing down 5 trailer loads, 4 confirmed, maybe a 5th trailer load coming down of water, nothing but water. A couple of the locals there, one guy had his grandkids, and for the last 4 days had no water, and that's the one thing they needed the most is water. So that's one of the things we're trying to bring down there and get so that people can get water. Like I said, everyone was doing their best, and I'm not trying to knock anybody. It just seems everyone we talked to said higher up, said no, higher up, said no, higher up, said no. And it's hard that you've got an army out there ready to help. It'd be, I wish there would be some way to put them to use. One of the people, I'll do a quick shout out. One of our bow fishing buddies, Aaron. He's on the Cajun Navy. Man, he's a stud. I know Eric Bell, stud. These guys are out there putting in their money, putting in their time, putting in their livelihood to help bring people home. And the same with John Wyatt, who went out there with me as well. Just studs wanting to do its best. And I can't tell you how many I met. There was probably thousands of people I met. Every last one of them, good people. Yeah, we saw a little bit of hate out there, but most people embraced us with open arms, calling us angels, and just glad that we were out there helping. And I know if something bad happened up here in North Texas or Oklahoma, that those kind folks down there would come out and help us. So, anyways,
Tell us about those about 100 families that you saw that
oh
refused
yeah.
to leave their homes.
Well, they sent us out on patrol, and the police officers told us if we found dead bodies, they let John White know what to do on dead bodies. He's a police officer. If we found some dead bodies, we'd have to pull them out of the water and stick them on land so we could later identify them. Luckily, we didn't find any of those. But we did rescue a family, and then we probably saw, I don't know, hundreds of other people that just refused to leave their home. One couple, it was a son and a mom. They were just up there dancing and having a good time. The only house on the block with power. They basically didn't want to leave their house because of they had cable TV and video games and didn't want to go without that. So people risking their lives for a video game or a TV show. The other issue that I know John's working hard on is some of the shelters that we were dropping these people off were unmanned and unsupervised. And that was the biggest, the two adult women that we took, that was their biggest concern, was going into the shelter without law enforcement. And I know of tons of Oklahoma, North Texas either firemen or police officers that would love to just come up and even be security for the night, especially for these women. But one church we went into probably had 300 people, no security. They had members of their church, but no one there with the right to pack a gun, besides concealed carry. But just for the safety of people, and somehow it would seem like the government could somehow give the authorization to these law enforcement officers who are trained, who could come down in a uniform, maybe not that county there, but from Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, Kentucky, to protect these citizens. So I think that would be important to address.
And then what about the stockpiles of water that you saw sitting in a church that nothing
Yeah,
was happening?
the stockpile. We saw some places that had water and heard of other places that had water. We offered to take them on our boat to distribute, and at first we weren't allowed to take those things to distribute because they wouldn't let us in the water. You've got thousands of boats just sitting there. Put 10 cases of water on there and let them go distribute the water. That way you could get 10,000 cases pretty quick out instead of it just sitting there. I know without water, like I said, most people we ran into were there 4 or 5 days and had no water. And that's the biggest thing that you need in some of these emergencies, even over food. Bottled water is what they wanted the most. All in all, it was a good experience. Just seemed to be in need of some organization higher up. All right, just as a clarification earlier, when we were finally able to get into an area, we had some law enforcement tell us of an area to go to so that we could just get into the water. They said we couldn't get in the water. Their higher ups weren't allowing us to get into the water, but if we just did it, we wouldn't be getting in trouble. So we did go to that area. We got in the water, I guess being rebellious, but it was great to be able to get in and help other people. Just to kind of paint the picture of what was going on for the families, so you can kind of see what's going on. Most of the places we went into were around 4 feet deep, and they were higher earlier. So the most of these houses, their first floor was unlivable, and they were living in the second story. There was sewage in the water, which caused infection for people with open cuts, sores. The electricity was real weird and sporadic. Some blocks had electricity, some houses had electricity. There would be like one apartment complex. The whole apartment complex was off, but one apartment building inside the complex, which was, again, odd. We had cars that would have their lights on underwater, or you'd drive your boat by and an alarm would sound on a car underwater, and you're thinking, is there somebody in there? And giving us a signal. There was just weird things like that that would happen, um, into what we were kind of fighting. So when we find people, our job, what they told us to do was to tell people they got to get out, and they were told earlier by the government you had to be evacuated. Some of the stories that we were told why they weren't leaving. One, they were told that they would have to pay for a hotel themselves, and then FEMA would reimburse them. And a lot of people didn't either have the money or they didn't believe that the government would actually reimburse them. So they said, "We'll just stay tight. We'll stay in our house until we have to leave." Other people were going, "Hey, they've told us that we can't leave with our pets," and so we tried to convince them, "Hey, you can get on our boats, but bring your pets. We don't care if you bring your pets." So a lot of people were staying just because they didn't want to leave their dog or their cat. We had one house that was completely empty, a whole apartment complex empty except for one cat up in a tree, and so we ended up going up this tree and I went up the tree to get the cat. The cat jumped out of the tree, and my buddy Eric grabbed the cat, and he got bit, and we still ended up rescuing the cat, and he had to get shots and all that type of stuff because his finger got huge and hot and inflamed, and another buddy of ours was also in another group that saved a cat, and they had the same thing. The doctor said because of all the sewage in the water, and from a nasty wet cat, that's how we got those infections. So that's kind of some of the things that we were experiencing. We were at the end of the day, we were exhausted. About 3 o'clock,
AM.
yeah, a.m. They asked us to wrap it up, and by that time we'd actually blown a motor. Our motor doesn't do well hitting concrete, so we limped our boat back, got it on, got around 4 o'clock trying to find a hotel. Only one that had one room left was the Hampton Inn, and kudos to those guys. They allowed us to stay there for free, and the manager there for the night said that people like us had rescued some of her family members, and she wanted to kind of pay it back, and so she let us to stay there for free. And the next morning we came out, we're loading up. Of course, we've got still tons of waters that we brought down, and a black gentleman came up to us and said, "Hey, I've got grandkids. Are you guys here volunteering, getting out food and water?" And we said, "Yes, we are, and we've got some stuff." So we helped him with water and food and clothes for his grandchildren. And he said the main thing that he'd been 4 days without water. He said he had money. He was trying to pay us money. He's like, "I've got money. I've got credit cards, but my cars are underwater. I'm in a hotel. I don't have any means of getting water for my grandkids." So he begged. He really wanted that. So I know with the local governments were telling people that, hey, everything's under control, but every local person we talked to was short, and the only thing they were asking was for water. So I know we helped out 4 families with enough water and food to last quite a while, and those are some of the other things that somebody should get on, especially for water for those people.